Good evening, folks, and welcome to the February 14th, 2018 agenda for this combined meeting. You have roll call, Ms. Haley?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Here.
Mr. Holmes?
Here.
Mr. Jennings? Mr. Medio?
Here.
Mr. Sabrana?
Present.
Ms. Spinelli?
Here.
Mr. Ulrich?
Present.
Ms. Acosta?
Here.
Mr. Boardley?
Present. In compliance with the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law, commonly referred to as the Sunshine Law, the Vineland Board of Education has caused notice and posting of this meeting to be sent to the following: announcing time and place thereof, agenda, etc. The Daily Journal, SNJ Today, the Press of Atlantic City,
Nuestra Comunidad, Visto Bueno, the Clerk of the City of Vineland, and the Administrative Office Public Bulletin Board.
please stand for the flag salute. And we have the
Memorials.
Memorial Middle School students.
Please stay up here so we can take your picture, okay? Parents, feel free to move so you can get a picture as well.
She was excellent in both languages.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Terry.
Do we have a resolution for executive session?
Yes, we do. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the City of Vineland School District will convene into executive session on Wednesday, February 14th, 2018, for the following reasons as outlined in NJSA 10:4-12. Discussion is VEA Level 3 grievance hearing, possible tenure charges against the teacher, and any matters falling within the attorney-client privilege to the extent that confidentiality is required in order for the attorney to exercise his ethical duties as a lawyer. Will convene into executive session on Wednesday, February. Wow.
At this time, we will,
We need a roll.
oh, I'm sorry,
So moved.
motion.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Haley.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Boardley?
Yes. At this time, we will convene to executive session. Sorry for the extra time there. Back in session. We have special presentations this evening.
Yes, we have a couple. I'd first like to call forward Mr. Ross Stanger, one of our supervisors, and he is going to share some exciting news regarding an award that our district is going to be receiving.
Good evening, everyone. Ross Stanger, Supervisor of Instruction, Vineland Public Schools. I'd like to thank Dr. Grucho and the members of the Board of Education for the opportunity to be here tonight. I am very proud to announce that Vineland Public Schools has been named to be a District of Character for the state of New Jersey, and we are currently pursuing the National District of Character status. Wanted to acknowledge and thank a couple people as well as their families who are here tonight, who've been instrumental in the process of the application and helping our students. We have Mr. Paul Myers as well as his wife and son, little Paul, and we have Stephanie Engel, who's also here tonight. And they have been truly instrumental in helping Vineland High School improve dramatically in some areas as far as discipline is concerned, staff and student morale. Just wanted to take a moment to explain a little bit about what the process has been like and to help you understand how we've gotten to be where we are. The application is based upon 11 principles, and just wanted to help you understand what that means, because without truly every single person fulfilling every single role, we would not be able to be here tonight. It starts with, obviously, you, the members of the Board of Education, and the mission statement that sits on the wall behind you, central administration, the other administrators in the district, the teachers, the aides, the bus drivers, the coaches, everybody. Everybody is truly a role here in making this happen. Basically, what the district has done is promote core and ethical values as the foundation of good character. We've defined character comprehensively to include thinking, feeling, and doing. We've used a comprehensive, intentional, and proactive approach to develop character. We've created a caring community. We've provided students with opportunities for moral action. We've offered a meaningful and challenging academic curriculum that respects all learners, develops their character, and helps them succeed. We've fostered student self-motivation. We've created an ethical learning community that shares responsibility for character education and adheres to those same core values that guide the students. We've fostered shared leadership and long-range support of the Character Education Initiative. We've engaged families and community members as partners in the building effort. And we also regularly assess our culture and climate and the functioning of our staff as character educators and the extent to which the students can manifest good character. It's been a 3-year growth process for us, made possible truly by every single person in every single role supporting the children in becoming the moral and ethical, upstanding people that we've always hoped that they can be. And again, it's with great pleasure and just proud to announce that to you, and just again appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. And again, I just wanted to acknowledge both Mrs. Engel and Mr. Myers, as well as everybody here, members of the community and so forth, because truly it takes a village, as the saying
We're going
says.
to be going up to the state to receive an award in May?
It'll be in May,
May,
yes.
okay.
It's on a Friday in May. I believe it's May 18th. We will accept the award. By then, we will know whether or not we are a National District of Character, but I will tell you that, personally, even if we don't get it this time, we certainly have other opportunities, and I will not rest until we hopefully get it. So we'll keep pushing.
I have to take a minute to thank Mr. Stanger as well. I know he's thanked many people, and it did take a lot of people to make this happen, but he led the charge and has put a lot of time in, so I want to thank you as well for taking the ball and running with it, and we're very proud of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Grucho. And again,
And little Paulie, thank you for agreeing with everything.
Yes.
absolutely. So thank you again, and thank you so much for your time. And
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanger. Our next presentation.
Okay, we have another presentation by Mr. Frangipani this evening. Twice a year, he has to give an update regarding HIB, and so he's going to be doing his presentation this evening.
Okay. Let's get it. Okay, good evening, everyone. Again, twice a year, we have to give this presentation and give an update on where we are with our HIB reports and how many HIBs we've had. I'm going to go through just a few slides just to give you an idea of what's happening since September to January, and a little bit about HIBs and how they work, because sometimes when we think of a HIB, we think of something that's terrible, and a lot of times we spend a lot of time and energy on incidents that that could be handled quickly, but however, because it's a HIB and the language of the HIB, it takes a lot of time. So I just want to take a little bit to explain exactly what a HIB is. It's basically anything that could be written, verbally said, electronic communications, could be one incident or a number of incidents. It's basically motivated, anything that's motivated by a perceived characteristic, and a characteristic is wide range, as you can see in the presentation: race, color, religion, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, sexual identity, mental, physical, sensory disabilities, any really distinguishing characteristic, and the list goes on. It could happen just about anywhere on school property, school functions, school bus, and off grounds. Some of the things that it has to do is interfere with the students' learning, the operation of the school. These are more distinguishing characteristics of you might find. Again, the list goes on. Children in special education, wearing glasses, the color of a student's hair, children living in non-traditional families, and you can see the list. I just want to give you an example of a HIB that went, it was in Montgomery Township, I'm sorry, Montgomery County. I'm right, Montgomery Township in Somerset County. It's a little north of Princeton. This was a student whose two sixth graders are at lunch, and one sixth grader says to another that the vegetarian lifestyle, vegetarians are idiots. He also said vegetarians, people that don't eat meat, people who eat meat are smarter and have bigger brains. This was a HIB. It went all the way to the commissioner. The administrative law judge heard it and agreed, because there was two factors here. One is it was motivated. There's motivation, and there's a distinguishing characteristic being a vegetarian, and that made it a HIB. So you can see that this may seem like something you would deal with, and which it was dealt with the counselor and making sure how students talk to one another. But a lot of time and energy goes into a HIB like this, where it's not something terrible. It's just two students at a lunch table talking, and he gives his opinion, and then those phrases are harmful, hurtful, and that becomes a HIB. And it went up to the Commissioner of Education, and they agreed. This happened a few years back. And again, the definition of a HIB is basically, and it could be any of these things involved. It affects the student physically or emotionally, harms the student, damages the student property, or placing that student in reasonable fear or emotional harm. And again, in this case, that HIB effect was insulting or demeaning to any student or group of students, in which in a way causes substantial disruption. Now, did that cause a substantial disruption? I don't know. That's something that they'd have to investigate further. But any of this would constitute being a HIB. And the big thing is that there's a characteristic involved, and there's motivation tied to that characteristic. So that's what constitutes being a HIB. Here's another one. Now, this was unfounded. This was last year about this time in Voorhees, a special needs student who habitually and indiscriminately seeking high fives from classmates. And he went into the restroom, and under the stool partition grabbed another student's leg and said, "High five." The district determined it didn't rise to the level of a HIB because it was not motivated or there was no distinguishing characteristic. The parent of the student filed a petition with the state, and the administrative law judge found that the special needs student, by grabbing the student's leg, did not define a HIB. His conduct was not reasonably perceived as being motivated by a distinguishing characteristic. So there was no motivation, there was no characteristic, so it wasn't a HIB. But again, you can see how far this went with two students, and it went all the way up to the commissioner who agreed that with the school district that it was not a HIB. So the big thing with a HIB, there always has to be a distinguishing characteristic, and there has to be motivation behind it. And that's the key when we're looking at HIBs. Here's our numbers so far from September to January. In our preschool, we have any. Our elementary school, we've had 9 substantiated. You can see how many were reported. There was 21 reported, 9 substantiated. In our middle school, we've had 17 reported, 5 were substantiated. In our high school, we've had 18 reported, 2 substantiated. And the reason why you would see that number go down in the middle in the high school, because 9 times out of 10, it's a conflict. It's not a HIB. It's not based on a characteristic. It's based on 2 students who may not be getting along for whatever reason. Sometimes it's she said stuff. Sometimes it's over a boyfriend or a girlfriend. But there's usually other factors besides the characteristic. So that's why you see a drop in the high school. So total from September to January, we've had 16. So that gives you an idea where we are. And we're getting better, our teams are getting better at investigating these and asking the questions to determine what the characteristic is and what's motivating it. Year to date, just to give you an idea how we stand from September to January, we've had 16 so far, and you can see each year that number. Now, that numbers you see above for 2015 was 23. That's for the year. And the 2015-16 school year, it was 43 substantiated, and that's for the year. So we're still below average for where we are for this year. We're at 16 from September to January. We've had 56 reported. So seems like we're getting better at it and making sure that we get it right when we do it. When you get the HIB report, we try to include on there what happened and what the consequences are. And a lot of times you will see counseling, because a lot of times it's just that. The students need someone to talk to them to make them understand what's appropriate, what's inappropriate when you're dealing with your friends. So like I said, we do a lot of training, and the HIB law will be changing. Will be some changes made come July 1. We'll see some changes. They passed it in November, but it goes into effect July 1, where the principal will have a little more discretion and when deciding what a HIB is and not. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Frangiovanni. Our last presentation this evening, I'm going to call forward Mrs. Vanessa Rasmussen from Vineland High School, and she is going to be speaking about our Poetry Out Loud, and we will be recognizing our winners.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Rasmussen. I am an English teacher and the English department chairperson at Vineland High School. We run a national program at the high school. It's Poetry Out Loud. We run the first step of it, which is the school competition. Before that, they do a classroom competition. This year we had 10 students competing in the school competition, at which we name one winner, one runner-up, if the winner is unable to serve their duties. But our winner this year is Francis Vertuccio. He's a junior. He is also the winner from last year, so he's a very strong contender. Last year he made it through the regional competition, which is the next step, and we're going to do that next week, so next Wednesday. You can root for him. It's at Apple Farms Arts and Music Center, and our region is Region 2. So we have Cumberland, Salem, Atlantic, and Cape May County competing. So Francis has some competition, and hopefully we'll make it again to states, which we did last year. So I'm looking for a state win this year. Very proud of our students. They're very enthusiastic about the program, and they're excellent competiters. So if you'd like, they can perform for you. It'd be good, some good practice for them. We'll have our runner-up go first. Then you can see Francis. That's right. The runner-up is Jeremy Rasmussen. He's a sophomore. He's my son.
Does he need to speak into the mic so you can get, yeah, would you, I hate to ask you to do this, but would you mind speaking into that mic so we can get it on tape? Thank you.
The Barnacle by A.E. Stallings. The barnacle is rather odd. It's not related to the clamor limpet, it's an arthropod, the one that doesn't give a damn. Cousin to the crab and shrimp, when larval it can twitch and swim and make decisions, tiny imp, that flits according to its whim. Once grown with nothing more to prove, it hunkers down and will remain stuck fast. And once it does not move, has no more purpose for a brain. Its one boast is, it will not budge, cemented where it chanced to sink. Sclerotic, stubborn as a grudge, settled, it does not need to think.
Okay, and now we'll have our two-time school champion, Francis Vertuccio, recite. Francis? Do you want me just to turn it this way?
Whatever.
He needs to move a little bit. Can I just turn it?
Okay. Can this pick me up? Okay, good. So, I will be reciting Analysis of Baseball by Mae Swenson. It's about the ball, the bats, and the mitt. Ball hits bat, or it hits mitt. Bat doesn't hit ball. Bat meets it. Ball bounces off bat, flies air, or thuds ground. Dud. Or if it's mitt. Bat waits for ball to mate. Ball hates to take bat's bait. Ball flirts, bat's late. Don't keep the date. Ball goes in thwack to mitt, and goes out thwack back to mitt. Ball bits mitt, but not all the time. Sometimes ball gets hit pow when bat meets it and sails to a place where mitt has to quit in disgrace. That's about the bases loaded, about 40,000 fans exploded. It's about the ball, the bat, the mitt, the bases, and the fans. It's done on a diamond and for fun. It's about home, and it's about run.
If you would both be kind enough to come on up, our board members have a certificate for both of you, and we're going to take a picture.
Like I said, root for us on next Wednesday.
Okay.
A lot of time and effort goes into the practicing, so you can see that they're really strong reciters. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. And good luck Wednesday. That's it for our presentations.
Discussion for the approval of minutes for January 3rd, 2018, January 10th, 2018, executive session, January 10th, 2018, combined meeting, and January 24th, 2018, board retreat. Questions, comments? Seeing none. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes to all except abstain on the January 24th board retreat.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Bordley.
Yes. This time, do we have any reports by the solicitor?
None for public session.
Thank you. This time, Ms. Haley, do we have any public comment on agenda items?
I need Bob's opinion on that, please.
This is not for public session at this time. The speaker may speak at the second public session later on. At the conclusion of the agenda items, probably tonight. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Probably about 20 minutes or so.
Thank you. Dr. Gruccio, motions and resolutions?
Okay. First, I'd like to recommend discussion of trips, district travel, and spring athletics. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the whole section. I apologize. I'm going to go back up to personnel. I'd like to recommend a discussion of retirements, resignations, terminations, leaves of absence, employment, transfers, student substitutes, extracurricular activities, and volunteers.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion regarding the increase in the hourly pay rate for substitute cafeteria and playground aides from $8.60 to $9.50 per hour, which will be effective Friday, February 16th, 2018.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend approval of personnel items 1.1 through 1.2.
Motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, Ms. Haley?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana?
yes,
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes, but I'd like to abstain from the agenda item transfers with respect to item number, or,
You can say the person.
with respect to employee Edgardo Rodriguez.
Thank you. Mr. Bordley?
Yes.
Okay, now I would like to recommend discussion on trips, district travel, and spring athletics.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none?
I recommend discussion regarding the board secretary to be authorized to enter into an affiliation agreement with Georgian Court University for the 2017-18 school year for the placement of students for field internship, student teaching, practicum, and observations.
Any questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend approval of 2.1 and 2.2.
Motion?
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Haley?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana?
yes,
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Bordley?
Yes.
Okay, now on 2.3, we're going to have discussion only, and Mr. Frangipani provided this sheet of paper for each of you, which is kind of a quick snapshot of all the policies and regulations that are listed here. This would be the first reading of these, so they will be on the March agenda.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none?
Okay. I'd like to recommend discussion regarding a resolution authorizing rental of Vineland High School ball fields to PG Summer 25 Mid-Atlantic LLC.
Any questions or comments?
I do. Just looking at it, the dates are scattered, or are they consecutive on the tournament?
I have to look at it. The dates,
Scattered.
the dates are on the email. They provided those
Okay,
dates, yes.
so 77 times. Now, the rate at $50 per day on the fields, is that in line with our facilities rental policy?
Yes, that's what we charge per field, yes.
Okay.
Now, here's what happened last year. This is a repeat of last year.
Okay.
So in the resolution, it talks about, we're charging them $3,850, but in return, they're allowing our students to register, and that's really a benefit of $8,000 to us, like where the students are not going to pay. So they're paying the basic rental, but they're allowing our students Vineland students to register free of charge. And at the end of the season, they will give us a check for $3,000 for field improvements, because they do use the fields quite a bit.
Okay.
And they've done that this past year, too.
So looking at the fee per student, how much of that $8,000 last year, how many students registered, and did that equal the amount that they were charging other teams that came in?
That I don't know. Mr. Robbins would have to answer that, but I can ask him to. I'm not involved in that part of it.
Say that again.
All right, Gene, what I'm looking at, they're saying that we'll cover you for $8,000. So when we look at, since this was done last year, how many students in the baseball team applied under that grant, that $8,000? And then how much did that add up to as far as the $8,000? Because it's easy to say you can attach a price and make it look, I don't know what the real cost is to register for a student to be in that tournament as a team. So I guess my point being is if it costs a team, I don't know, $500, I'm just throwing it out there, I have no idea. My question is that? Like, that $8,000 seems very generous, and I see the benefit to the kids in Vineland. But I want to know what that number really is. I mean,
yeah.
8,000, it just...
I would have to get that from Mr. Robbins.
The number depends on what advantage is taken of it. They offer a free entry fee to their tournament. I think it's $800.
$800 per team?
$800 for a team.
According to the website, it's $950.
Okay, see, then it went up. It was $800 when I was there. If we have teams register, they register for free.
Okay.
Now, that's got nothing to do with them if we don't take advantage of it, right?
Right. Did we have teams last year that took advantage of this, would be my next question.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. The high school, it's not the high school team. It's the summer high school group because of the NJSIAA regulations.
Right.
They were in there, and I don't know about last year. I didn't go to many games, but the year before that, we had students, or Vineland kids, from the Little Leagues.
Okay.
In
So at
Little
the
League
end, we're not
tournaments.
going to have any Vineland kids that, in the end, aren't going to be able to take advantage of this.
No, they're going to be able to take advantage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to stand corrected, I was looking at the wrong site. It's $895 for the Vineland hosted tournament per team.
And that's that tournament that runs over that series of dates.
There's several tournaments. No, the tournament goes usually for the weekend,
Okay.
and you're entered to play as long as you're, you keep winning.
Okay.
They literally rent out like all the senior league fields in the city, including our high school field.
Yeah.
And then
Sometimes both fields.
Right. And they shuffle the kids around from park to park.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
For that tournament.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to recommend approval regarding a resolution authorizing rental of VHS ball fields to the PG Summer 25 Mid-Atlantic LLC.
Any
So
further
moved.
Go ahead, Gene, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Haley?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Boardley?
Yes.
I'd like to recommend discussion of budgetary transfers for the general school-based and ECPA budgets for the month of December 2017.
Any questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion of the Board Secretary and Treasurer reports for December 2017.
Any questions or comments?
I recommend discussion regarding the placement of special education students.
Any questions or comments?
I recommend discussion regarding submission of the following grant applications. 2017 NSLP Equipment Assistance Grant for Durand Elementary School in the amount of $9,064. The Sustainable Jersey for School Grant for Cunningham Academy in the amount of $10,000. And Slow Food Grant for Winslow Elementary School in the amount of $500.
Any questions, comments?
I recommend discussion to accept the following funding. 2017 NSLP Equipment Assistance Grant for Durand Elementary School in the amount of $9,064. Am I reading the same thing again?
That's accepting the money. One
Oh,
is submitting
accepting,
the-
I'm sorry, okay. Sustainable Jersey for Schools Grant for Cunningham Academy in the amount of $10,000, and the Wetlands Institute Environmental Field Trip for 92 students and 5 chaperones from Menny's Elementary School with a maximum amount of $970.
Any questions or comments?
Okay, I recommend discussion regarding the submission of the fiscal year 2018 Individuals with Disabilities Education Act application to the State of New Jersey Department of Ed, which includes any carryover monies for the fiscal year 2017, July 2nd, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. Basic allocation is $3,071,890, and the preschool allocation is $125,671.
Questions or comments?
I recommend discussion regarding the submission of the fiscal year 2018 Every Student Succeeds Act application amendment to include carryover funds to the State of New Jersey Department of Ed, July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. It's Title 1A, Title 2A, Title 3, and Title 3 Immigrant. Title 4, Part A.
Questions, comments?
I recommend discussion regarding the tentative tuition rates for the 2018-19 school year.
Questions or comments?
I recommend discussion regarding the following tuition contracts between Cumberland County Technical Education Center and the Vineland Board of Education for the 2017-18 school year. Shared time, 46 students, $46,000. Strive, 5 students, $72,500. And the ESY is 2 students for $4,480.
I have a question. What is the Strive?
Strive is their special education program, and ESY is the extended school year.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No problem.
Questions, comments? Sir.
Strive, the students come from there to here?
From here to there.
From here to that, to them.
These are all for students that go to CC Tech from here.
Oh, so they're at CC.
Yes,
Right,
yes.
right.
We've already approved the full-time students, but then we just got the contract for the shared time, the Strive, and the extended school year. They just didn't send all the contracts at once.
Do the students who are not special ed, do we pay the same tuition rate?
No. The full-time students, the rate is a little bit over $7,000 per student.
Any follow-up questions? Thank you.
I recommend discussion regarding the reduction in the Salem County Special Services School District preschool handicap tuition rate from $43,000 to $20,000, prorated for the 17-18 school year due to the program being reallocated to Lower Alloway Creek Township School.
Questions or comments?
I recommend discussion to authorize the board secretary to advertise and receive competitive bids and requests for proposals during the 2018-19 school year.
Any questions or comments?
I recommend discussion regarding a resolution authorizing procurement of advertising revenues in accordance with NJAC 5:34-9.4.
Questions or comments?
Just a question on the advertising. Are we talking about the busing advertising?
This is for actual gym walls. The bus advertising, we already have approved that. But
Okay.
this would be for advertisements inside of a gym.
Okay.
I recommend discussion regarding bus advertisement renewal for Rental Country for 1 year from February 22nd, 2018 to February 21st, 2019 for 20 ads in the amount of $3,315.
Questions or comments?
This one is a renewal of bus ads, and Rental Country actually rents 40 ads, but they're on 2 different cycles. So he's renewing 20 ads, and then the other 20 will come up at another time.
If it was up to me, I'd give Gary Galloway the space for free. He's that much of a supporter of the community.
He's our
Yes.
best advertiser, our most prolific advertiser.
It's almost a donation when you look at it.
I recommend discussion regarding the change order to McCullen Roofing Incorporated for the Landis School partial roof replacement for the unused contingency allowance of $10,000.
Questions or comments?
I recommend discussion regarding the change order from Land Tech Group for fence upgrades to the Gatone Stadium in the amount of $14,002.
Any questions or comments?
I do. And these comments are going to roll over to Land Tech with the 416 also. Explain to me why the improvements to the fencing need to be made now and weren't part of the spec when we went out to bid for this artificial turf.
I can start the conversation, but it may
Okay.
lead on to maybe calling Wayne up, I'm not sure.
Right.
Originally, that was not in the specs that we put out for the bid, but there was a construction meeting in December where the vendor came out, and some of our personnel and some board members, and also our engineer was there, and they talked about other things that we may want to consider. The vendor was talking about different things. One of the things was the fence, the changes to the fencing, and the other was the cool play infill. So those 2 things came up at the construction meeting. Then the vendor went and calculated what the change order would be and submitted it.
Okay, so I guess the next question is, if these items were needed, why weren't they in the specifications when we went out to bid? And why are they added as kind of like an upgrade now?
I can't really answer that. I don't know. I mean, like, the specs were written based on the needs that we thought at the time. The engineer drew up the specs. I don't know. Mr. Weaver, can you add to that? Okay, thank you.
The initial specifications were as-is conditions. We had a 4-foot fence all the way around the perimeter of the football field. During discussions after the project actually was bid, as we were looking at the site, the athletic director noted that we ought to raise the fence 6 foot on the end zones, just on the end zones, and put up a wind screen there to prevent a lot of people from gathering and heckling and things that happen over the years. So that was something that was discussed to raise the fence height. Second part, as we were talking about the synthetic turf over the natural turf or natural field, we talked about controlling the site. So one of the things during graduation, we need to keep people off with high heels and gum and different things that could cause some problems with the synthetic turf. So we took a look at the openings in the fence, and we had to gate off those openings so we can seal it. So that was the additional cost as part of that change order. So that kind of came through after we kind of sat down and looked at some of the things associated with the synthetic turf, some of the problems that we didn't have with the natural over the synthetic.
Is that a need or a want? Like, is that absolutely needed, or is it would be nice?
Well, I mean, the gates, I would say, for security of the field and longevity, you definitely want to control that site to keep different problems that can occur. Like I said, the contractor talked to us about Gatorade can stain that field, gum, high heels can actually puncture it. So we certainly want to contain the site and control it with gates.
as far as the 6-foot height on the ends, that was something that Donnie had mentioned would certainly be a benefit during the games, to raise that height up.
Well, I would counter that the whole feel of Gatone Stadium is the fans get to stand in that area and you have unobstructed view. It's actually one of the preferred methods. A lot of people watch it from those end zones. And it's been good like that, Wayne, since I went to school and played football in that field, the regular turf field. And I just don't see, like, why at this stage of the game, if it's not absolutely necessary. I get the gates, to secure that a little bit better, but security guards can monitor the areas around the field for hecklers or whatever that is, and it's certainly not going to equal the cost of what you would put up in the windshields and the 6-foot fencing in those areas. I just don't see it as a, I see it as a want. It's nice. And I just don't, these two items that are tied together are, I don't see how they add to student achievement. I don't see how we can possibly, like how you can justify to me if we went out to bid and safety was used in one of the responses now. And I'm just, I don't know. I just think we're facing tax increases, school closures, laying off teachers, and the athletic director's deciding, let's do some upgrades on the field, that equals $73K.
One thing I can say is we had budgeted $900,000 for the turf field, and when we went out for the lease purchase, that's how much money was funded, so that's in escrow. When we put it out to bid, we put several alternates, and the total price, even with the alternates, came to $863,600. So there is still $36,400 in excess in the escrow account, which we're permitted to use because it was set aside for that. So the way we were going to fund these change orders would be to use that $36,400 from the lease purchase, and then there's money left over in the construction fund and capital outlay in Fund 12, because as you see even tonight, there's some of the jobs that came in less, so we have credit allowances for the contingency that wasn't used. So there's about $46,900 in capital outlay due to those jobs that came in less, so we were going to put that towards that as well. And then the fencing was going to come out of the maintenance budget, because whenever we replace fencing, we take it out of maintenance. So that was $14,000.
I get that. If the money that was in the account is not spent, where does that lease money return to?
The lease money?
The $36,400. What fund would it go into?
If it's not spent, we use it to pay down the principal.
Okay. So if something comes in under bid, I think that's a benefit to the district to put that money back, pay down principal. It's bad enough we had to get a loan for this. I don't see the logic in it. And even, thank you for answering my question, by the way.
You're welcome.
And Dr. Gruccio, too, when I called. I did spend time with them, and I just don't see the necessity in it. I'll be honest with you.
Do we know the breakdown, Mr. Weaver, from the gated fence and the 6 foot on each side? Is that broken down?
It was itemized. I don't have it
I probably
in front
have
of me.
it. If I look at the change order, it's probably on the change order. Let me just see. 415. Okay, on the change order, it says upsize of 4-foot high fence to 6 foot, $7,452. 20-foot wide by 4-foot high slide gate, $5,700. Additional 4-foot high fence, $330. Install 6-foot high fence in lieu of 2 main gates, $520, for a total of $14,002.
So we can get the gates for $5,700, right?
No,
Use
that's
what we have existing.
The 20,
just a slide gate.
yeah, it's a slide gate. It's, if you have the attachment for 415, if you can click on 4.15,
Okay.
it's right there.
My link's not working.
Just a point about student achievement, and this is just my view of it. Having a district that our kids are proud to call home keeps them here. They're in a better learning environment because they're proud of their school, something that we've lacked for a while. Point of view, on my end is, if you're proud of something, you're proud of where you work, you're proud of where you live, you're proud of where you go to school, I think you're going to be more relaxed. You're going to have more pride in where you're at. You're going to represent that I'm from Vineland. This is my school. I'm proud of it. I think you're going to be in a better learning environment because you're happier to be there. Where you go to a rundown building every day, you don't want to be there. Us adults call out sick because we just don't want to go to that place. So, it's, again, my point of view is that's going to increase our children wanting to go to school, being proud of their learning environment, being proud of, they kind of take ownership of the district a little bit more.
I mean, I'm going to say that, that's a view. I would say that Cumberland County is the poorest county in the state, and that monies like this could be used to pump into facilities where student achievement can be realized, and that nothing that happened this year couldn't happen on a regular field that was maintained. And I don't think there's going to be anything that you can draw upon except for anecdotal stories that kids are going to be happier to come to school because I put up a $14,000 fence. Yes, it's nice, and I'm sure the people that want to play there, yeah, when I was a kid, I can remember the chills running into Catone Stadium. We had one of the best fields in the conference as a young high schooler. But that's not the day and age we're in right now. We're struggling. We're going to lay off teachers, and you're going to really say, let's pump another $73K into the field. I'm sorry. I'm not going to agree with it. I'm never going to agree with it. And I didn't get elected to just say, oh, that's okay. I don't think it's cool to do that. That's all I have. Thank you. And I really want to thank Mary and Helen for, talking to me for about a half an hour this morning. Thank you.
Thank
Mr. Media?
Just one addition for the public to understand. 4.16 is an approval for a change order for an upgrade to something called Cool Play. If you watch football games on television, a lot of times when the receiver drags his feet on a turf field, he kicks up some little black knobs. And those are they are about 2 inches thick. It's a layer of rubber that supports the turf, and that's what makes the field soft when you land, et cetera, and it's black. And part of the reason that we looked at upgrading it, well, it's not an upgrade, changing it to green rubber knobs, with balls, whatever you want to call them. That's supposed to cut down on the temperature of the field. If the ambient temperature is 90 degrees, the temperature on the field can be as high as 120 or 125. So not just thinking about football games and soccer games and lacrosse games and field hockey games, or whoever else is playing in September, you also have to remember that you have graduation there in June, and that'll, if you have a 90-degree day, which I've been there for that before, that'll cut the temperature on the field, and that'll help keep it at about 90 degrees instead of getting up to 120. And that was one of the things that came into play in looking at that turf being changed from the regular to the Cool Play. And that's used a lot in a lot of southern fields.
And also, just to add, 4.16, we're not going to vote on that for approval. We're waiting on a response from Land Tech for a negotiated lower rate on that before we put it up for approval. Any further discussion?
Okay, I recommend discussion regarding change order 11 from Capri Construction for work related to renovations in the lower level student registration apartment at Landis Administration Building in the amount of $27,137.88.
Questions or comments?
Yes. On this one, I had the benefit to speak to Helen and Dr. Guccio this morning for half an hour. So just to educate the public, why is this change necessary, Dr. Guccio?
Okay, we've decided that if we spend this money, we can take transportation registration, place them in the same building with the rest of us so that we're all under one roof, and then we will be able as a board to either rent or sell Coney Avenue, which would bring some funds into our district.
And that's going to require some subdivisions and so
Yes,
forth
a little
because
bit,
of the
yes.
property there. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
What's the amount that it's costed the district to renovate Landis so far?
Well, so far, we haven't spent any money except this over the money that the city is going to be giving us for the building, the $450,000. This is the first change order in addition to that money, so that we can get the last piece into the building, and then we'd have Coney available to do something with.
Follow-up question, when is that $450 paid?
I believe Mr. DeSanto can answer that better than I. I think it's coming up in March or whatever, but I'll let him explain.
Yeah. The city was willing to wait until we were completely out of this building in order to move in, so that there would be an easy transition. I think Dr. Gruccio estimates the first week in March, the last...
The last group that will be moving into Landis is special ed, and I believe that's the first or second week in March, and then everybody will be out of the building.
Okay, so we're projecting that the closing can take place within that next week, so probably mid-March. Mr. Geiber from the city legal staff is involved now. They're doing a title report, and we'll be in a position to move as quickly as a week after the building is vacated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just backing up to 4.16, I understand then that we are not voting on that.
We're not voting on it tonight. We just discussed it for the public's knowledge. We're waiting on a number change. We're hoping that Land Tech will be able to negotiate that a little bit better than the price that they gave us.
So does Dr. Guccio have to pull that from the agenda then?
Yeah, I will pull that one item. When I group them, I'll pull that one.
Okay.
I recommend discussion regarding the following name changes to the authorized signers on the Rossi School activity account. Kelly Williams will be added, and Rick Ebinger will be removed due to his retirement.
Questions or comments?
I recommend discussion regarding the Cumberland County Regional Cooperative Transportation Initiatives, transportation quoted contracts, the transportation addendum, record and award bid number 7, contract corrections, and bid number 6 contracts.
Any questions or comments?
I would now like to go back and recommend approval of items 4.1 through 4.17 with the exclusion of 4.16.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
He did say second.
Oh, you did? Okay, I didn't hear. Thank you.
Roll call, Ms. Haley.
Yes. Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes to all. I abstain on 4.15.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes,
Ms. Spinelli?
Everything but 4.15. That's a no.
So no, okay, let me just. Okay. Mr. Ulrich?
Everything but 4.15, that's a resounding no.
Ms. Acosta?
I'm going to vote yes.
Mr. Boardley?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Review of bills incurred during December 2017. Questions or comments? We have committee reports.
Oh, do we have to vote on the bills?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Motion to approve the bills incurred December 2017.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, Ms. Haley?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Boardley?
Yes. Committee reports.
Finance Committee.
sorry. Nick.
Finance Committee met January 31st. Mr. Medio, Mr. Holmes, Dr. Gruccio, Ms. Haley, and Mr. Musserell were present, as well as myself. Ms. Haley distributed the proposed 2018-2019 budget, highlighting budget cuts, and it gave us a detailed report of the general fund. We also discussed sending out RFPs for several professional services. We discussed starting the process to subdivide the property at Coney Avenue, and we also discussed specific transactions with CC Tech. Anybody have any questions? I'll send the report out to everybody as well.
Thank you. Mr. Ulrich?
Yes, Policy and Personnel met tonight. Ms. Spinelli, myself, and Ms. Acosta, along with Mr. Frangipani and Dr. Guccio and Joe Rossi, were present. We discussed the grievances that were heard in executive session, along with the policy additions that have been forwarded to you that you'll have to vote on a future board meeting. And that was it.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? Seeing none. Items proposed for review or discussion or adopted by board members. A 4-member committee of the board met to hear a HIB appeal on January 22nd, 2018. The committee is recommending to the full board to uphold the substantiated HIB from Wallace Middle School on November 15th, 2017. I have a motion or discussion? Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Abstain?
Mr. Ulrich?
Abstain?
Same abstain?
Yeah,
Okay.
abstain, yes.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Boardley?
Yes.
I have to restep. Hey, it was my birthday Friday, so I'm getting old. There was a bylaw request on the Policy and Personnel agenda that the committee reviewed, and we're leaving it as stand, and that the board realizes that we can suspend bylaws and vote on a matter if we have to. And that's the addition. So the social media interaction, Skyping in, was left the same.
Thank you. Now have opportunity for the public to address the board. You're reminded you're limited to 5 minutes for each person. Ms. Haley?
Mr. Dietz, yes.
Good evening, Board. Tom Dietz from Vineland here. I got an issue that's been going on at the school for the last month and a half. My son asked a student to turn down his radio in class, and at that time there, the student got upset, flipped the chair over, went to attack my son. The security and teachers got involved, put him against the wall, removed him from the class. He got suspended for 4 or 5 days. He came back from that incident. The same day he came back, he went to attack my son again. He was removed from that class. Now, this is the Friday the 9th. They had a meeting that they wouldn't talk no more and all. The next period, the teacher was walking him back. The student went off. The teacher tried grabbing him, holding him back, but he broke loose from the teacher, and he assaulted my son. He hit him in the ribs, hit him in the jaw, and my son didn't do nothing. The principal appraised him and all that, but I think that's a little bit of abuse there, and now he broke his hand. I had him in 3 hospitals. I left Children's Hospital today. They put pins and rods to hold his bones. But I mean, this, my wife wrote up a HIB Act, and Mr. McCann denied it, but, you know, if I got to go further, I got to go further. But something has to be done with this issue here, because, I mean, it's an ongoing thing for a month and a half. And, you know, I tell him and my wife tells him not to fight or nothing like that, but where does the law come in where you're self-defense? And, I mean, then the principal asked me, called me in and says, well, you got the right for a HIB and go to the police department. I went to the police department. Mr. Montana said to me, well, why are you here? Why didn't the school call the police to the scene where the assault happened and all? And I didn't know what to tell Mr. Montana, you know, but that's what I'm into. And then I have another daughter over at 12th grade, and 2 years ago she went blind with a tumor. So she was having a little incident with a student, and it was going on, but Mr. McCann, I think, got a good grip on that part. You know, I think he calmed the kid down and all. But I don't need my daughter being assaulted like my son and hitting the other side where the tumor is, and something deadly could happen. You know, but I don't know. I know maybe you can't talk about it and all, but I want to bring it to your attention that, you know, I just left Children's Hospital. He had another surgery today, and this is an ongoing issue. Now, I got court coming up, but I want to find out about medical expense and my time and all for taking him back and forth to the hospitals. You know, and I don't understand why, if you can say or not, but why weren't the police called to the school as the incident happened? Why did the officer have to tell me that at the police department?
We can't get into dialogue, but Mr. Frangipani handles the HIBs, so
which he's going to look into it, you know. But if they do deny it, I'm going to have to go a little higher, because to me,
well, Mr. Frangipani heads that up, so
yeah.
he's
But if the kid's arms broke, and I mean the teacher was involved, he broke loose from the teacher, and he did assault my son. To me, that's an assault.
Understand.
Yeah.
So Mr. Frangipani will let you know how the process works, and then all your options if for appeals and all that
yeah,
stuff.
because I seen we went over to him tonight.
Mhm.
But I mean, like you says, you can't talk about it. But now my son, he's in this situation, you know. And my
Understand.
other daughter, I think Mr. McCann took care of.
Okay.
So I just got to wait now to hear from Mr. French. We spoke earlier, but I mean, I just wanted to let the board know, you know, my son was assaulted, and now he's had this surgery, and I got to find out what's going on with it. You know, and as a parent, you know, I tell my kid not to do nothing, but you know, I'm ashamed to say now, I already told my son after it's done and over with, if it happens again, you know, I don't want to sit here and say as a parent, but you know, I'm going to have to go ahead and release him and just take the consequences after, because I'm not going to have my son being bullied like this. You know, I don't know how, if you have kids or not, how you feel about it. But
Well, we're going to hopefully not get to that point, but
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Frangipani will take care of that for you. And
all right, then
give
he'll
you your
reach
options.
back and touch base with me.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments?
No.
Anything for old business? New business?
I'd like to propose a possible new business discussion. Is that all right?
Yes, sir.
Last year, the board looked at the possibility of putting some armed guards into our schools to augment security. And it was initially looked like it had legs for approval, and then it was pulled back. Budgetary concerns, everything like that. So tonight we spend money on a fence, potentially the next meeting on some cool turf. I'd like to look at the proposal again at some form of enhanced security at our school systems. Today, 17 students were killed in Florida in a horrific school shooting. Many of the students were inside the building, some were outside. Now, there was a lot of chatter posted about it, and obviously that investigation is going to take a while to sort out. But when we're looking at that, I want to make sure that we're also looking at securing our schools in the best way we possibly can. And though we will never prevent with 100% certainty, I think we should mitigate the possibilities and maybe look at some type of hybrid combined effort between maybe some contractors, whatever you want to do, and some of our district employees. That's something that makes sense to me. And our schools have to be safe and secure for kids to learn. And we have some bad people in the world today. So I'd like to propose that as something down the line that we take a look at it again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Ulrich.
Which committee would look at that?
Well, it's going to have to go to Finance, Gene, and it'll have to probably bridge there first, and then obviously policy would have to look at it. So, I mean, and if the administration doesn't want anything to do with that, there's, nothing that we can do. But it's something I think we should examine. And it probably isn't, possible or maybe possible. I don't know.
Just as a clarification, I certainly don't mind looking into it again, but we did meet with every group the last time this came up. Budget certainly played a role.
Sure.
But I met with a group of parents, I met with teachers, I met with principals, and at the time, they weren't against it, but they really were not for it. Like they were very content with what they feel they are safe and well taken care of where they are presently. That was the feedback I received. So that was a year or two ago, so I don't mind looking into it again. I just wanted you to know that I did meet with them.
I'm just saying that there are different approaches in the private security world to, a mixture of proprietary staff and contracted staff that can be more cost effective. So it's something that we certainly you should look at and be put on a wish list. I mean, we're going to budget $100,000 for a press box too in next year's budget. So, I
have no problem. I just wanted you to know that
Okay.
I did talk with them.
Any other discussion on this? Board member remarks, Mr. Medio?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Fiocchi?
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Holmes?
No.
Mr. Ulrich?
I think I've said enough tonight.
Ms. Spinelli?
No, thank you.
Ms. Acosta?
Just want to wish all of administration's faculty and students a very happy Valentine's Day.
Dr. Gruccio?
I'm good. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Thank you for spending it with me.
First and foremost, Mr. Ulrich, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Today is Valentine's Day, but I also would like to wish my wife a very happy birthday.
Oh,
She's a Valentine's baby. And outside of that, I wish everyone a very safe and prosperous month. Motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir. Oh, I'm so. My apologies, John. You're
We have a
quiet.
motion on the floor to adjourn.
Where'd that come from?
I'm here.
I just want to thank our
Oh.
class. Congratulations to the winners of the Poetry Out Loud contest. I was also very pleased to hear about the special honor accorded to our district this deserving of recognition for character. Know from past experiences, seeking this level of recognition is an arduous process, and many thanks to Mr. Stanger and all that is involved in this successful application. This is certainly welcome news on a day where we learned about another school shooting that Mr. Ulrich talked about. And this is the 18th shooting at a school in this country in 2018, a year that's only 45 days old. And since 2013, there have been nearly 300 school shootings in the United States. That's an average of about one a week. So I certainly concur with Mr. Ulrich that anything that we can do that's within reason and that we can afford should be done so we have safe schools. Now, the causes of these kinds of events, which are atrocious, are many and they're very complicated. Therefore, solutions are going to be. But I am heartened, though, because I know many people working in this district, and I know everyone is vigilant to ensure, to the extent possible, that our community does not become one thrust into national attention in this manner. And Mr. Frangipani's report showing our diligence with pursuing appropriately any hip complaint made is evidence of that. But we must do anything that we can do, because these are horrible things, and I don't know if anyone has seen any of the news reports, but it was just an awful, awful day, I thought. And I do wish, despite the wonderful weather down here, that I was with all of you, where sometimes I'm much more comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sabrina. Apologize for that. Motion to adjourn. All in favor?